We'd like to welcome you to the Computer Science Microchip Technology webinar. We are glad that you're spending some time with us today, and hopefully you'll find some insights to this area in computer science that are very, very interesting. Just to give you a little bit of a welcome from the club coordinators, we have three club coordinators: the science coordinator, which is Sharon Story, the math coordinator is Pam Summers, and I am Tracy Clanton-Smith, the technology coordinator. I'm the one that's actually sending out the emails and the links to the archives and the webinar setup, all of the technology that goes on in background. So we're really glad that you are joining us today. Sharon, Pam, and I have talked together in many years of education in our background in our areas, and so we've enjoyed putting these together to share different career interests in different areas to make students aware of what's really out there. Just to remind you about our webinar environment, if you have not had time yet, please go in and check your webinar environment. Make sure that your media players are set up so that you may view these videos at the time that we are watching them in the presentation. I did send out an email also with the links to these videos so that if you have a slow connection, you might have those already up and ready to run at the time that we get to it in the presentation. But it just kind of makes things run a little bit easier, a little bit smoother for those with slow connection. A reminder also that if you have a question during our webinar, please go into the chat box. It's located on the right-hand side, and you can see that you can send it to all participants, or you can send it privately to me as the host. As your question comes up, we will make note of that, and then I will forward those questions during the presentation to our speakers, allow them a chance to answer your question during the presentation. There'll also be an opportunity at the end of this webinar when we're done for more questions that might not have been come up through the actual presentation, and I will post any questions and answers that come in by email later on our webpage as well. So again, we'd like to invite those of you that are joining us today. I'll turn it over to Pam or Sharon and let them talk just a few minutes about our sponsors.
Well, as always, we want to thank the STEM Research Center here at Tech and the National Science Foundation for the funding that they've provided us to be able to do this project.
We're really excited today. We have two excellent speakers that are going to talk to us. One expert who's going to explain to you how a microchip works and a semiconductor, and we're really glad because Pam and I, neither one are experts on that subject at all. And I want you to know that we're also a little jealous because your cell phones, your iPads, your iPods, all of those are really something that have been made possible by the invention of the microchip. Pam and I grew up in the generation where computers were in a whole room, and I can remember the first calculator I bought was $75, and all it did was multiply, divide, subtract, and take the square root, and I thought I was in hog heaven. Now it was large, about the size of your notebook, about 8.5 by 11. Now you can do all that on your iPhone, and you can go to the internet, and you're living in a remarkable generation, and we want you to be aware of the technology that goes on with that. But also want to look at some of the other uses that are becoming available for microchips, such as one of the things, and the newest thing that we're going to talk about, is that you can take your pets and you can microchip your pets so that you are able to find those. And so we have an expert that is going to show us or talk to us about the importance of microchipping your pet and what you need to do to recover your pet and all of the kinds of pets that you can microchip. So we have an introductory video that we want you to watch that talks just a little bit about the importance of the microchips on your pets.
as long as you don't put up a regular vet, say any kind of vet, or any regular vet, all stuff, the whole world, whether or not where, it's that's why I have a back on your dog and, you know,
I'm going to go back and just replay that video very quickly since it's a short video. I just want to make sure that the audio did come through on that first half. So we're just going to replay it one more time just to make sure everyone is caught up there.
I've been looking for years, but now this dog has been fetched by technology. One other prayers finally.
And it's been I have to show them a moment. How you doing? Good. Oh my God. Well, how long has it been? 3 years. 3 years. 3 years ago, this dog somehow disappeared from his owner, father, not about more else. Okay, please. We don't have family. Losing him was like losing one of my family. Late last week, someone found Lobo and brought him off at Miami-Dade Animal Center. I was not expecting at all. Actually, I was finishing a service when one of the masters went. I got the phone call. Followed around with just the last time we saw Lobo, he was just a puppy. And that was over 3 years ago. And the only reason they're reunited today is because of the microchip that he put on this dog. Just there, the $10 microchip impacted the difference between Lobo being lost and now there. But as long as the dog shows up at a regular vet, okay, any kind of vet, or any regular vet, or a shelter, in the whole world, whether or not where, they can find the dog. Some dogs will have a back on your dog, and you know,
Okay, so when you think of a microchip, you think that it's a small, and this doesn't say a lot. A picture speaks 1,000 words. It's a small semiconductor integrated circuit. What it does, it uses electronic characteristics to transmit. In some cases, the word microchip and integrated circuit can be used interchangeably, and this was one of the questions that Sharon and I had as we were researching. Was there a difference? And so Dr. Lee is going to be able to speak to us about that. Was there a difference between a microchip and an integrated circuit? And so, as Sharon's already told you, it's at the heart of everything that we do, that we have. A little bit about the history. Where did it come from? Who invented it? This is a very interesting story, because at one time there were 2 scientists, 2 engineers, that were at the same time in different places working on the same invention. These 2 people were Jack Kilby and Robert Noyce. And both of them were at different places. One was with TI and one was with Fairchild Semiconductor Corporation, and working on the same thing. Their sources, which I'm sure Dr. Lee will be able to explain to us more, where Kilby was using germanium and Noyce was using silicone. And they were both working on integrated circuits. So therefore, the research would tell us that both men have been given credit for the invention of the microchip. And they're both working, as I said, in different companies and coming at the invention from slightly different angles. The 2 companies got together and they both decided that they could merge together, and that's how it came to be. Here's a picture of Jack Kilby, and he was an electrical engineer, and he also was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in Physics in 2000. He died in 2005 in Dallas, Texas, and he was with Texas Instruments. Robert Noyce was born in Burlington, Iowa, and he had a degree in physical electronics. And he was nicknamed the Mayor of Silicon Valley, and I thought that's pretty cute. Cute's not the right word, but it was pretty impressive.
before we go on that I want y'all to be aware of is that if it was not for the semiconductor and the microchip, everything would cost more and everything would be much larger. I'm talking about the first calculator that I ever bought, and it was the size of an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, cost $75. You now go to the dollar store, buy a calculator for $1 that does the same thing, and it's about the size of a credit card. And so it's the invention of the microchip and the invention of semiconductors that has allowed that to happen and made it more cost effective.
Today we are so very fortunate to have some really good experts with us. Our first expert comes here from Texas Tech University, and so it's so wonderful to have somebody so close and so have such easy access to this person. Dr. Donald Lee is at Texas Tech University, and he's going to tell us, as you can see, he's been published. He has several publishings. And he's going to tell us a little bit about his area of interest because his specialization is radio frequency identification. So, Dr. Lee, we want to thank you for coming and welcome you here.
Thank you so much for having me here. I have a small endowed chair with my professorship. The endowment actually come from Texas Instruments, so I'm very familiar with all the history of Jack Kilby and Robert Noyes, and just amazing people. So I'm very privileged to be here and with all the experts and the beautiful teachers.
We appreciate that.
So the RFID, or radio frequency identification, first I think we talked about what is the difference between the integrated circuit and microchip. Pretty much there's not much difference, but in terms of microchip, it usually means that it's a bigger system. Integrated circuit is just whatever circuit that you can integrate. So here I show a slide just illustrating that many technology can be used for monitoring and identification. So infrared, ultrasound, barcode, all those gadgets that you can actually buy from the toy stores, like my kids love to play those spy games. Magnetic tape cards, smart cards, RFID, image processing, they all could be used for monitoring and identification. There's some people showing that. My personal belief is that the RFID, as you have seen in the video, how the priest is able to find this, lost pets after 3 years, it is the best fit for animal tracking. And I'm also an adjunct professor with the surgery department, so I've been to the operating room seeing how surgeons operate on people, implanting like cochlear implanting artificial ear. So personally, I really think this is the way to do to go for animal tracking.
I have a question before we go any further. You're talking about the cochlea implant?
Yes.
Is it an RFID?
RFID? No, it's not. But it has some kind of ID if you want it to be implanted. For that technology, it's trying to, if a person doesn't have a problem in terms of from the nerves of his ear to the to the cortex, then you could have a the electrodes and a receiver implanted, so you could trying to retransmit or decipher what human voice, the natural voice, and encode that and stimulate that, generating the pulses get to your cortex. Somehow we get to your nerves, and the nerves will be connected to the cortex to recognize the sounds.
So do they put an RFID inside this cochlea implant so that if anything goes wrong with them, they can track them back down?
They do have their IDs, but I don't think that was for the, once you go to the medical for human, there's very strict regulation, what we call the internal IRB, internal review boards. So there will be a privacy concern, HIPAA concern in each country is different, so they will limit that trackability. So it's a touchy issue that how much privacy you want to be able to preserve once you go through certain customs or things like that. So.
Now this is a very touchy subject also, because one of the big controversies right now with RFID chips are people with Alzheimer's, some of the older generation, much older than I am, but I'm getting there fast. They're putting implants inside their arms so that if something happens, you can track them back to their house. And it's very controversial, I know also.
Yeah, for dementia patients, for those people, yeah. And we all have to, we have seen this, and all have to be careful, especially some people, due to religious reasons, they really don't want to be implanted, and you have to respect that. So coming back to the slides, those are great questions. The RFID technology, what is surprising is that this is one of the most widely used technology in today's world. I did not put on a slide, but it's also, some people call that a most hybrid or diversified technology. It's been used everywhere. So it basically consists of three main components. There is a tag, which is sometimes we use a technical name, transponders, but just call it a tag, or the RFID is a good name, tag. And that tag has a small antenna that's embedded, okay? And then there's a reader that is the reader that has much higher power that will send out electromagnetic waves to try to interrogate the tag, okay? Try to find out where the tag is. And then there's that reader is usually where companies make their money and have some sophisticated controllers. And then the RFID tags, basically, the two main types. One is called active tags, the other is called passive tags. What we have in the animals are passive tags. Okay, most likely passive tags because it does not require batteries, so it can run many, many years without any problem. Okay. Those were implanted in cochlear implant. They do have batteries. Okay. And RFID is the use of wireless non-contact system that use the radio frequency electromagnetic waves to transfer data from the tag attached to any subject for the purpose of automatic identification and tracking. Now, some of the tags require no battery. Those are passive tags. They're powered by electromagnetic field used to read them. And that's the tags. Tags antenna receive the electromagnetic energies transmitting from the reader's antenna. And then bounce it back so the reader would know, oh, there's a tag there. Okay. So other tags use some local power sources like battery and actively transmitting radio waves. Those because they're actively transmitting, they burn power. So that's the problem. A lot of the time they're much more bigger and costly. The tags contain electronic stored information which can be read from up to several meters away. And unlike a barcode that you're very used to in the grocery store, the tags just do not need to be within the line of sight. That means you can put a subject there in between your tag and the reader, and it still can read it. Well, if you do that for a barcode, you cannot do it. You cannot read the subject. So that's an important thing, and also many information could be embedded in the tag ID, such as when we talk about dementia patients, their birthday, their names, and everything. So you could actually put a lot of things in the storage of memory of the text.
I'll go ahead and stop. We do have a little question here that's come in about have we heard of Amal Grofstra? Probably slaughtered that name. Amal Grofstra. He has tags in both of his hands that he uses to unlock his car, house, and computer. Have you heard of that?
I think I've heard of it, that name, but I wasn't sure whether he's a stunt magician or a crazy scientist. I'm sorry, I don't really remember now. I'm too old for that.
I have one question. I don't know if it pertains. Is it pacemaker?
That's a good question. Pacemaker, or ICD, what is called implantable cardiovascular defibrillator, those are the things that one of the most popular implantable medical devices. So you put those ICD, they used to be huge. Okay, used to be you have to open up a person's stomach to put a pacemaker there. Right now it's much easier, and it's much smaller, about the size of your high school kids, probably half the size of your palm. And they require battery, usually 5 to 10 years. Okay.
So they are a passive tag. No, they would be an active tag.
They would be using the microchip inside and having all the mechanical, all the electronics there to monitor the heartbeat. Okay. And and then to regulate the beat of the heart if it goes haywire. So usually the later version would include include a defibrillator, that is ICD, would be able to generate 800 volts of electronic pulses to give a person a jolt, so that heartbeat rhythm will be restored. So I actually do some of the research in that area for the electronic side, but not the entire system. The whole system, once implanted, that's another thing. It has to be totally sealed, hermetically sealed, and it has to be biocompatible. All the materials that you use has to be biocompatible. And when you do that on an animal, the regulations, I think, is a bit looser.
So you know what metal they use on the sealant or the patch?
Good question. I think they use cobalt, chromium, and things like that. Yeah. So, and actually, the materials for the electrodes is very important because they put the electrodes near your, especially for there will be several nodes, AV nodes, or some of those nodes that inside the heart, the ventricle, the atrium. So they want to place it on in the inner walls there. So that electro material would be having a direct contact with your heart muscle. So those are very important parts. Yeah. So those are the research for material scientists or medical technologists. Okay. And the first use of the RFID was documented by British Royal Air Force in World War II, and for the refinement of radar. And then in the 60s, that was being used in the commercial world. After this, about 1970, that's really the revolution of the microchip. Coming back to this with the microchip was TI's Jack Kilby. When he did this in germanium in 1972, I think, he has to cool down the transistor, to cool down the radio. He made a germanium radio, but because germanium is a material that has a band gap that's lower than silicon, later on silicon take over, Silicon Valley. Robert Noyce was the founder of Intel, really take over. So the material property, like a chemist would really appreciate that. It makes a huge difference in terms of the noise property and how the electrical characteristic of the circuit will form. So we actually went through that for the RFID technology. So the first application for RFID, really for military, and later on MIT does this. And many people actually started doing that. And we'll just go to the next slide. Many people are doing this, very diverse. And this here is one of the teachers actually put it here and said the size of the RFID really is a great, grain size. The rice grain is, you look at that microchip that's implanted in the pad, so it's sealed, and this is very, very tiny. Right? It says that it is the size on a transponder or a tag, right, attached to each object, and which is read wirelessly by a reader, allowing the data about the object to be collected. So what happened is that you have to have a high-power reader send out the waves, and then the antenna in the chip, which you can see that I think is on the copper antenna core. You see antenna there. So once the antenna read something, there's something that it just will reflect it back, and in a temporarily power up the chip, so that it will be able to access that whatever is stored in a memory. So this is actually sort of a simplified picture of the RFID tag that's being implanted inside an animal. So the next one. Those passive tags doesn't need the power, right? They can be activated, but usually they suffer from the limited range because you have to be able to read it. You have to have a very powerful reader to read that. Okay, but they're cheaper, much cheaper, and they can be manufactured in large quantity. Okay, so next one. And the active tags, they do contain a power source, internally. That's a battery, and all kind of battery can be used, and they may be larger than the passive tags, maybe slightly bigger than a coin, and the frequency of those electromagnetic wave that you can choose varies a lot. It could go down to kilohertz, like what you hear from the radio, from AM radio. It could go up to the popular one, actually, to 2.4 gigahertz. That's the ISM band, your Bluetooth video frequency. So that's a fairly wide range when you think about that. Okay, gigahertz versus kilohertz. Okay. And there are type of some of the RFID for animal identification. This one I added I know that Texas Instruments leads the world in terms of the animal tracking for those, especially for cattle industry. 80% of the world market, and there are a lot of cattle in Brazil, were implanted with the Texas Instruments chip. They may be implanted by other companies that bought the chips from TI and put it there, as their brand name, as we'll probably see later on. And animal identification used the low-frequency one, in this case 134.2 kilohertz, a very narrow band. Okay,
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the 80%, why? Because when you think about microchipping animals, you don't really think about microchipping cattle. Why do they microchip cattle?
Very good question. I think I have something, but let me just say here, they have to identify, each cattle for mad cow disease, for example.
No,
Okay?
I didn't know.
Yeah, and that's one of them. And the other one is that they put the reader near the feeder. Okay, so whenever the water, let's say a water basket for the cows, when a cow go back to drink, they can actually say, okay, so they can track, this particular cow, ID 345. How many times a day does he actually come and drink? If we found that the number of period is really very, very small, it doesn't come at all, and we will notify the cowboys, and they will know, well, something's wrong with this one, right?
Cool.
Sure.
Does the microchip also take the place of a brand?
Good question. There is something about microchip for a computer, right? So can you implant something more intelligent inside an animal or a human body? The answer is probably just very, very difficult. What you can do is that you can do some intelligent things inside. For example, when you do deep brain stimulation, when a person's having seizures, epilepsy, and or dementia or something, that you could actually periodically send out some patterns of stimulus to try to stimulate the nerves to make the brain that is just wonderfully created, God, it's just this amazing thing that to function better. Just like the heart, people have been trying to implant the artificial heart. When we do pacemaker, we still do not replace the heart. We just put some regulator there. And people have been trying to do the pacemaker, trying to do the artificial heart for a long time, mechanical heart. And from what I know from the physicians I talked to, including the president, used to be past president of Texas Health Science Center, he's saying in his lifetime, heart will still be the best. So it just there's something you can never replace. It is very difficult. Of course, if the human heart can be implanted, that will be probably still a better one, but you don't get that.
Okay, but microchip is used for identification. So does it take the place like of the 4.6's brand that they put on the cattle for identification on their skin?
Oh, the brand.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
That's a good question. I don't know whether they do both. Some of them I do know they still do both. Okay, but some probably just use the microchip. From I know. Yeah, this is interesting. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, that's okay.
No more cattle rustling.
Okay.
And I know that has become a big problem with the drought in Texas because we have shipped all of our high-quality cattle that they're using for breeding to Montana because we don't have the grassland. So I just wondered if they were using those chips for identification purposes so they didn't lose their breeding stock.
Wow, that's interesting. That's interesting. I always admire those cowboys. It's just amazing, and cowgirls. And sometimes I have students from the farming community too. Their integrity is very high, very hard-working people, very, very good. Okay, so the low-frequency RFID for animal tracking, that's what we said that they would run up, helping the feeding and watering, for the animal more effectively. Okay, you can check the frequency, such as monitoring the frequency with which the animal visiting the feed station. The decrease in frequency can indicate illness. Okay, so we'll keep going. So this is an interesting one, using RFID to track people, see whether they wash their hands or not. Believe it or not, that's really one of the biggest problems, in clinical.
So do you use these in restaurants?
That's a great question. We want to do this in restaurants too. They haven't done it because there is no, we would try to market this technology. We actually work with Texas Tech Office of Technology and Commercialization. We try to work with them to license this. I and several doctors working on this. It is, you have to find the restaurant owners. They found some kind of a incentives to do this. So hopefully they will pick it up with technology like this.
So are you primarily using it in hospitals?
I think the restaurant business is a much better one, and also the animal the food processing industry. The hospital, I will show you this case. Hospital is especially the intensive care unit, ICU, difficult because there are a lot of different things going on, and any equipment that's used in hospital has to be strictly regulated. For example, you cannot have raw woods, made materials there. They just don't like it. So you can use plastic and things like that. So it is always, it has to be, and also has to have very strict regulation. And nobody wants to be monitored. Doctors say, I went out and have some smoke. Well, you're going to monitor me for not being there, temporarily. So this, right now, we have a IRB, the Internal Review Board, passing this review, but it's all voluntary. So you cannot force people to participate in this. So let's show you this cartoon here. So if you click on that, you see this subject come into the door, didn't wash his hands, and was prompted with a light bulb, and then washed the hands, and he's clean and is allowed to go to the patient. You wouldn't have to back it up again. So okay. So this person wear an RFID, not implanted. Okay, just wear a tag. Okay, like that, and then come into the door, and then the door antenna hidden behind, you don't even see it. Track it and say, hey. Light bulb lights up and say, you didn't wash your hands. Please wash your hands. So you go to the soap station. The soap station has another microchip there, and say, okay, press me, and I will show that you have washed your hands. And wireless transmitted to a central computer remotely. Turn off the light bulb, and this person is okay to go. Okay, so next one. This has to be in a strict regulation. So all this thing I'm showing you a picture that we have built in a sink. If you wash your hands under the sink, we put an antenna. Behind the door, put an antenna. Soap dispenser, put an antenna. It's actually and a light bulb. That's the system. Keep going. So it's a picture. With some of my students, a doctor. He is just coming in, and there was some light bulb that you see, and so he pressed on this thing. We have this generation of system. It's even portable, so it's right next to the patient's bed. This is a third generation of our product. Okay, so that's just trying to show you that the RFID tracking can do a lot of things.
How long have you all been working on this project?
We've been working on this for about 2.5 years for the RFID, or maybe 3 years.
And you have graduate students,
yes,
undergraduate students. Who comes in to work with you?
We actually have grad students right now for we have several graduated that they work for TED and Qualcomm, so they work on this technology, and sometimes we have undergrads. And also I have a partner who is the vice chair of the anesthesiology department, Dr. Ron Bannister, and Dr. Shamila Dafanaki, who is a surgeon, trauma surgeon in the surgery department. We also have Dr. Jerry Lopez, who used to be my student, who has started a company in Texas, in Lubbock, Texas, also doing a lot of volunteering, working. It's a good program for high school kids.
We have a question that came in over the antennas that we just showed. And a student asked, the antennas you just showed were for active tags. Is that correct?
I don't know which ones I've shown.
The ones for the hand washing that were in the sink.
Yes. Okay, that's a good question. Actually, no. For the washing, for the tracking, all this thing that's done in the hospital, the setting for low frequency was all passive tags. So what happened is that you have to have a reader that is powerful enough to send out the strong electromagnetic waves, such as just like a radio station tower, a radio tower. So that would broadcast. And then once you have a microchip there, you receive it, it will send some information back to the reader. Okay, it's like you wear a receiver, still it's passive. So this is actually not so easy to understand. So don't feel bad if you don't understand it. It's fine. Okay, so in this, I think we have a similar picture shown before that was made by the wonderful teachers here. That a microchip is very small, just like a rice size, and the vets can implant the chips into all kind of cats, from reptiles and birds to cats and dogs. And there would, and there would be a number, and the number is plugged into a database that includes the name and the contact information of the pet owner. Next one, please. And the shelter or the vet does a pre-scan to verify that the animal initially does not have a chip, selects a microchip from the stock. This is when the vets or shelter wants to do an implant. Okay, make a note of that chip's unique ID, and then insert a chip into the animal with a syringe. The injection requires no anesthetic, procedures, but this is amazing because for human you cannot do that. Okay. Now, before sending the animal home, the vets or shelter perform a test scan on the animal. It helps to ensure that a chip will be picked up by a scanner, which is the reader, okay, and that is the exhibit a unique identification number that will be read correctly. Now, several countries require a microchip when importing an animal to prove that this animal and the vaccination record match. Some of those rare animals, absolutely, such as, I'm not sure about panda. I think some of the animals does require, it's in some kind of international treaty, ACIT or something, you have to have that implanted. So microchip tagging may also be required for, this is CTITS, regulated international trade in certain rare animals. So I put a link there for you to check. Okay, next one. There's several microchip scanner or readers. You can see they're portable. Some of them I used are not portable. For pricing, they're actually a lot more expensive. For example, the tag itself could be less than $1 US. The low frequency one is usually more expensive because the materials and everything. Let's say you can get it for 50 cents, and for 10,000 animal to be tracked, and that would be about $5,000. But a reader a lot of times costs $1,000, just one reader. So you don't always have the reader. So when you try to put them near the station, you just have to select them wisely which stations you want to put for the readers. And those readers that we show are more smaller one, so the range of the reader is not very large. It probably is only about 1 to 2 meters at most. But the big power readers can read, 100 feet or something, and that's useful for animal tracking when you do cattle. Okay. So this is some of the companies. I'm not trying to sell their chips. So some of the companies they have been that's pretty popular for this market, okay, for the implantable market for animals.
We're going to turn the program over to Mr. Bird, who's with the Animal Shelter here in Lubbock. He's supervisor of the Lubbock Animal Shelter, and he has a BS in Animal Science from Texas Tech University. How long have you been with the Animal Service?
I started with Animal Services in September 2001.
2001.
So I'm going on 11 years.
So he's going to tell us a little bit about what exactly happens. We have a number of questions that we want to ask, such as the readers that we just saw the pictures of. Do your animal control agents carry those readers inside their vehicles?
Yes, all our vehicles are equipped with one of those, and we scan every animal we pick up, whether it's deceased, injured, live. We actually have protocols. We scan these animals several times. Normally, as soon as they pick them up off of the call, once they get to the shelter, we scan them again. When we move them from one section of the shelter to another, and before final disposition of the animal, whether it's adoption, euthanasia, or anything else like that, we scan. So these animals are actually scanned several times.
So if you pick up an animal and you scan it there, the animal control agent scans it, and he automatically gets an address for the animal, do you notify the people that their animal has been picked up at that point, or
Yes.
do you go ahead and take it back to the shelter?
Yeah, we can, once we basically scan an animal, it comes up with the microchip number. We search that animal that we microchip. We microchip our affected animal and any animal that has been previously claimed through us. It's written into the Lubbock City Ordinance that those two types of animals have to be microchipped. So if, let's say your dog got out once before and you come to the shelter, find it, before you can take it home, it has to be microchipped. We keep your name, address, description of the dog, and that microchip number in our database. So the time we pick it up, we scan it, oh, we've had this dog, we search that microchip in our database.
Okay. What is
And
your,
then we attempt, we look, we say, oh, okay, we've had this dog, here's the address. We try to return it. If you're not home, then it has to come to the shelter. Then we call you and say, okay, if the shelter safe, come get him.
what is the approximate cost of having an animal microchip?
It depends. If somebody calls us up, the shelter itself does not microchip animals for the general public. We always refer them to a veterinary clinic. And they set their own prices. It ranges anywhere from about $35 to $40 for that. And that normally includes the registration for the microchip information. As we were going through that, we talked about the Home Again, Avid being kind of two of the major suppliers of the microchip. That nationwide database. When you get a microchip through them, you get the literature that says, okay, here you can register your animal nationwide with these guys, with Avid or Home Again. So if you happen to travel a lot with your animal, let's say I have a dog and I like to go, I wish, to my summer home in Colorado. I have time and I have the money to have one. If I'm registered with them nationwide, and when my dog's out in Colorado Animal Control picks him up, what they would do is they would scan him, find a Home Again chip. First thing they do is they call Home Again. Hey, I have a chip made by you guys with this number. Can you tell me who it belongs to? They don't say, oh, okay, that belongs to Sean Berg. Here's his contact information. They would call me and say, hey, I have your dog. I'll be there to pick him up. Now, when we microchip an animal, currently we're using Home Again chips. It's $16.95 a year to register nationwide. I've already said we keep that information in our database to keep our costs low and the cost, because when we pick up an animal, they already have to pay an in-town fee, microchip fee, and everything. It runs anywhere from $75 to $100 to pick their animal up from us. We don't automatically enroll them. We give them the literature, say, we recommend you do it, but I can't make you do it. What happens if they don't register it, and they try, let's say, to Colorado, Home Again, get a call and say, I've got this microchip number. And they say, we're sorry, we don't have any personal data on that chip. However, it will go to Lubbock Animal Control in Lubbock, Texas. There's an extra step. Then they have to call us and say, hey, we have this microchip number. Oh, okay. We have the information. So the nationwide database is just cuts out the middleman, them having to call us. We encourage people to use it. We find very few people do.
Okay, so if they don't register it, and it was put in Lubbock, Texas, and you go to Colorado and they call Lubbock, Texas, then do you send a bill to the owner of that chip here in Lubbock because you're having to put out extra secretarial work to keep that database?
We do not. Our main goal is just reuniting people and their animals. It's as simple as typing in that microchip. It's a 10-digit number. So, no.
So does the same thing work if I had a dog, didn't pick up one from the animal shelter or anything, I took him to the vet and had him implanted, but then I didn't register every year with the company, so let's say it was Home Again or whatever, and my dog is lost.
Right. Let's say you used a medical center here in town.
Okay.
We pick that dog up to Home Again chip. First thing I do is I call Home Again because it's not in our database. We've never seen your dog. I'm sorry, I don't have any registration information. We show it was sold to Animal Medical Center Veterinary Hospital in Lubbock, Texas. Thank you. I call Animal Medical Center. Everybody that sells microchips keeps their own little database.
Okay, the scanners that you have, because we saw pictures and there were several different types of scanners.
Yes.
Will all the little microchips be read by all of the different scanners, or does your scanner have to be specific for your microchip?
That's a good question. When we started microchipping in 2006, at that time, really, there was Avid, and there was pretty much Home Again. Nowadays, there's Avid, Home Again, American Kennel Club has come out with their own chip, a company called Trovan, and there's numerous others. When we started, Avid and Home Again scanners wouldn't pick up each other's chip. They all wanted to, they wouldn't share the information, the technology. So we have a Ed scanner, we had to have a Home Again scanner. So we had to basically scan the animals twice. Nowadays, they've at least shared enough technology where if I take a Home Again scanner and scan it, it will come up and say Avid chip. It will not give me the number, at least I know to go get it.
So you still have to purchase scanners for both of the chips, which is
They are
another cost.
slowly working together where it's going to go along. One scanner. There are some universal scanners which we have purchased that will now tell me. So within the last couple of years, I scanned it with Universal Scanner that another company has made. It's worked out a deal. It's not a Home Again scanner, it's not an Avid scanner, but it will now tell me Avid and the number, or Home Again and the number. So there are scanners out there. They're more expensive, but for us, it's worth it than to have to carry two scanners everywhere I go.
What is the approximate cost of a scanner? I'm sure you know.
For us, because we do bulk and we can negotiate, and most of these chip companies, their main goal is to reunite animals along with ours. We pay anywhere from $300 to $500 per scanner.
And what about breeders? Are breeders now by law required to microchip their animals?
Normally that's left up to jurisdictions. Like for Lubbock, we have it written into our ordinance that, you know, if we pick up your animal, it has to be microchipped, you don't get a say. So our adopted animals have to be. So it's left up to jurisdiction. I can't say, okay, Sharon, Pam, just because you're in Lubbock, your dog has to be microchipped. I can't make you do that. So breeders, for the sake of being able to track, I would recommend they do that, but I can't force it. And most jurisdictions will not do that.
Are cities now going to ordinances where their animals have to be microchipped?
Coming through shelters, yes, they are. Because we've got a lot of repeat offenders, and it's very advantageous for us to be able to track the dog or cat.
Does everybody that works for you, are they certified to insert the chips, or do you have to be a vet to insert the
No,
chips?
you do not have to be a vet, really. And I know that sounds crazy, but there's no certification required. To insert a chip, it's just like giving a vaccination. It's inserted through a needle. It's a rather large needle. It's about a 12 to 14 gauge. If anybody knows anything, that's a pretty good size needle. But hate to be stuck with one. When you get a shot, you get probably a 21, maybe 25 gauge needle. So it's about like this big.
So, are they all located in the same vicinity when they're inserted?
Yes. Protocol is right between the shoulder blades, just under the skin, subcutaneous. We don't want to inject any muscle or anything like that. It's just under the skin. Once it's injected, we showed the picture of the little microchip the size of a grain of rice. It's got a biocompatible material on the outside. What happens is the tissue that it's injected in will grow to that microchip, and it's not migrate. The first chips had a problem. They didn't have that capsule included, so once it got injected, it had a tendency to travel. So what happened was you went to scan where you thought it was, and you didn't have a microchip. The owner's going, I know this dog had a microchip. So you went to hunt it, and you might find it way down in the leg, by the paw. Those things, as the animal moved, the chip just migrated down with it. But now they put that capsule on there, the tissue adheres to it easier than the glass, and so it stays put.
About how often do these have to be replaced, or do they ever have to be replaced?
They're basically for the life of the animal. There's no power source. The scanner, as Dr. Lee is indicated, is what actually activates the chip. These scanners have to be about 2 inches away from that chip. So it's a very narrow, maybe low-powered. It's about 2 inches away to activate that chip.
Animals, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
animals ever have reactions when they're injected?
Very few. Very few. The only thing that some vets have voiced concerns about is at the activation, or at the injection site, where that tissue grows to. There's been a few, and I don't have the statistical numbers, but nationwide there's been no more than a handful that has developed a tumor around that injection site where it's grown to that chip.
So it's just like a calcification?
Yes.
Okay, so it's really not
But-
harmful. It's like
No.
if I have an allergic reaction to mosquito when I form
Right.
a calcification around it.
Right.
Okay, you were telling us earlier before we started, we were asking you about, because when I think of microchipping, I think of microchipping my dog or my cat. And you were telling us about some of the reptiles that during Katrina that you got to microchip.
We have microchipped nearly, well, I won't say nearly anything. We've microchipped a horse. We've microchipped a goat. And Hurricane Katrina and Rita happened. They had a big center in Gonzales, Louisiana, that's where all the animals were brought, you know, New Orleans and everything. And we sent some folks down there to assist with that, and they stayed for about 2 weeks. And they said all kinds of animals came in there. And what they were doing is they were microchipping them, giving them shots, and then sending them to other shelters for holding and everything. Our guys microchipped chickens. They did some reptiles. We had some requests for turtles. They never did follow through with it. But
Where
in
would you
that
microchip a
in that
turtle?
case, in the front end, kind of right where it goes into the chip, again, you would do all these, you would try to go just under the skin. You don't want to go into the muscle because then you get into more of the reaction type. Really, we're just going under the skin, into the fat.
How about if frogs and fish?
I've heard that they do all those.
Wow.
I could imagine doing a fish or anything like that. But if anybody wants to bring us one, we'll sure try it.
Approximately how many animals do y'all microchip a day?
Last year, I don't have per day, but we did about 2,500
In a
per
year?
year. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's,
Do an average.
yeah, so you could do an average.
Yeah.
So you see, you know, microchips have become something that are very, very popular. If you're going to pay, I know I have a daughter-in-law that spent $600 on a puppy. If you spend $600 on a puppy, a $35 investment is a very cheap investment.
You know, when we started chipping back in 2006, that's when we got all our chips, our scanners and everything. We really started doing this. We got some English Bulldogs in, a couple of English Bulldogs. And either there's not very many of those here in town, or people guard them with their life. Because, like I said, I've been here 11 years. I can count on my 2 hands the number of English Bulldogs I've seen come through our shelter. We got 2 in. You could tell they were a matched pair. We scanned them. Sure enough, they had a chip. Like I said, this is when we first started scanning for chips. Oh man, we got so excited. We found chips and we called home again. We had these dogs belonging to a person in California. Well, I said, get here to Lubbock, Texas. We called, and they're like, really? You have our dogs? They were stolen 6 months ago from us.
Oh, wow.
And so, you know, that kind of made us believers right off the bat. And they came and got their dog. And you know, you saw the video of this dog being reunited. There was a dog that we had microchipped, I don't remember, it's been 3 or 4 years ago, that went up in Tennessee, a husky, black and white husky. So I got there, there's that dog to talk, to tell us how he wound up in Tennessee. I mean, we're always seeing stories of cats winding up, you know, places, and things microchips. Tags, you know, everybody always said tag your animal. Tags can be taken off, tags can be lost. Microchips are basically for the life of the animal. We always tell people, don't tell anybody your animal's microchipped, because if they are stolen and you find it, that's your proof right there. You can tell them. Because people don't think, oh, microchip. You can take out a microchip without surgery. And they go in and actually cut that chip out. Like I said, the tissue grows through that chip. So if you see your dog, say, hey, that's my dog, people are going to say, oh no, I've had this dog forever. Call the police, call animal control, we scan it. Sure enough, it's got a chip. It's registered to you. That's an open shut case right there. You get your dog.
That's a very good point. We have a video that we want to watch about microchipping a puppy because Sam and I put this one in because I've never seen a puppy microchip. I have questions about, does it really hurt the puppy, or you know, does it really get upset? And it's real interesting to watch this video because the puppy acts like it's not even, it doesn't even notice anything is being done. So we're going to watch this.
It's fully contained. Here we're checking Charlie, this is another chip already. We don't want to give him another chip. And no chip. So what I'm going to do now is microchip Charlie. So first we're going to check to make sure chip is correct. So we're scanning chip. And there's the number. Just put display. Now we're going to microchip Charlie. Quick, painless, and remember, a single injection offers a lifetime of protection. Now we're going to just stand Charlie to make sure the chip is there. And ready to go. And just remember to register your pet online.
And one thing I think is interesting about this video is she scans the chip before she inserts it into the puppy. How many chips do y'all have, or do you ever have chips that aren't any good when you start to scan them before you insert them?
Basically, no, they're not any good. It's human or machine or whatever. Sometimes we have actually found syringes that don't have a chip in them. And there's no point subjecting that animal to an injection to put an empty chip. That's just to make sure that there's something in that syringe before we go through that process. You saw they scanned that dog beforehand. We want to make sure there's not already a chip in the dog, because there's nothing worse than double chipping an animal. And as happened, accidents happen. These chips, these scanners, are electronic. Things happen. That's why we have the protocols for multiple scans. Whether it's the chip reader, it may miss that chip. It may be the officer's going too fast, not close enough to the animal. For reasons unknown, they missed that chip. Well, just missed the chance to get the animal back. So that's why the next time we do it again. We have found that actually our vehicles have stainless steel cages. Found that if they scan them, and veterinarians have confirmed this on their stainless steel exam tables, for some reason that interferes with that scanner picking up that chip. Ours with the metal studs that's kind of close to that, for some reason that interferes with that reader picking that chip up. So we have to be real careful. That's why we scan multiple times, to make sure we do not miss the chip.
We want to thank y'all for listening to us, and I think we'll let Tracy conclude with our presentation today.
We want to again thank our experts today, Dr. Donald Lee and Sean Bird. They have done a great job at bringing this particular area of interest to us and maybe giving you the highlights of how RFID chips work, especially within the pet community and how that is done. We have their contact information listed up here for both of our experts, and I want to remind you that if you have questions that come up later that maybe you're kind of diving into this particular area and you have a question, you can always go to our website and you can send in a question. It'll come to me, the technologist, and forward it on to our experts and ask them to answer those questions for us. And then go back to the web page and actually post the question and the answer for you. A reminder also that with our website, this particular webinar will be archived, and the link for the recording will be up and available on the website within the next day or so. So please feel free to have friends, family, other students, anyone has an interest in this area, to please come in, download, and view the webinar to get a little bit of information about microchipping. This is our last webinar for the school year, and it's been a pleasure for Sharon and Pam and I and all of our experts that we brought in throughout the school year. It's been our pleasure to bring different information to you and maybe give you a little insight to some different areas that are tied into math and science and into our STEM project here at Texas Tech. So again, we'd like to thank you, and please visit our website. We'll be posting things about things for the archive of the webinar, as well as anything that might be taking place in the future for next school year. So again, thanks a bunch, and we appreciate you joining us today.
Bye-bye.